Greetings, friends. Brad Beyer here. Wanted to take you on a little tour of some of the features of this website. We're going to be doing just one of these tabs today. This is the basic note naming tab. So let's take a look. So this is the first tab that you see on the worksheet generator here from Beyer Music Resources. And here you can do a number of things. Of course, we're making worksheets for your students where they have to identify the notes on the lines and spaces themselves. So let's take a look at the first thing that we have here down. You've got several different options you can work with. They're pretty self-explanatory, but this is the most important one that you're going to need to deal with in the beginning. This, of course, is where you choose which instrument you want to make the worksheet for. And then you have three different levels in here. You can choose between the first 5 notes. This would fall within usually the first 5 notes that are taught within most beginning band books, beginning or band or orchestra books. So for trumpet, C, D, E, F, G. And then you would, it applies differently for each of the instruments within the proper keys that they should be. But let's choose, for example, if I did choose the first 5 notes, it would pick one of those 5 notes. And then in the intermediate level, the first octave, that would be the basically your concert B flat scale, the first scale that you learn, the first full octave. And then of course the expert range, which would be basically any note that you could have within that range, including all the accidentals and such. But for our purposes today, let's just take a look at the intermediate option in the first octave there for a trumpet. 24 questions is the standard for any worksheet, but you could choose any of these other numbers if you would like. And then we don't have to, but we're going to add a title here. Let's say for today, trumpet test. This is May 10th, 5:10. All right. And then I'll just do it at one copy for right now. And then you just hit generate, and there you go. You've got your fully prepared trumpet worksheet, trumpet test for naming these basic notes within this first octave of the scale that you can see. And I could, of course, generate this as many times as I wanted to. And it would keep giving me new versions of it over and over again. So that's the most basic functionality of it, and it allows you to do that for one instrument. But the really powerful thing is when you go back to the top of this drop down here and you start to use the full band or the full string orchestra options. So when I do this, if I pull the intermediate option, for example, it's going to pull up a list of all the possible instruments that we typically have in a concert band. And this is where you get to choose how many are in your ensemble. So let's say I have 4 different flutes, and I don't have any bassoons, and I don't have any bass clarinets, but I do have 3 tenors and 5 or 6 trumpets. And you can go on down the line and list all these as you'd like. 7 tubas, of course. And then you come down here and you can update the test name if you want, number of questions, whatever. But then you come down here, generate again, and it'll give you another fully formatted thing. This starts with, I think we had 4 flute copies in the beginning. So all of the flute copies are the same, and there's 4 of them in a row. And then it goes right into oboe, and then it goes right to clarinet, and so forth on down the line to our tuba players. And you'll notice that these are all formatted with the correct clef, and again, within that same range. And any of them that have, for example, the traditional concert B flat scale would include a flat signs for E flat or B flat. Those are incorporated there as well. So this is a pretty powerful tool that with this you can generate a full class's worth of worksheets in like 10-15 seconds. You probably saw is roughly what I was able to do with that. But before I go, I want to show you one quick little thing at the end here. There's a couple other more specific options that are not necessarily as obvious right away. And that are these. First of all, if you want to have your students practice tenor clef, there's some of the more advanced ones, maybe a trombone or a bassoon player, they want to practice tenor clef, they can do that. And there's ways to specify that. But there's also a custom clef / range instrument, range option here where you can click whichever clef you want. Let's say I want to work on the bass clef, and then this should pull up the lowest possible note. We'll say lowest possible within general high school, junior high, or high school and college level thing. What would you could reasonably expect to be the full range, right? So all the way up through many octaves. And let's say I wanted the lowest note to be C2, and then I wanted the highest note to be, I don't know, C3, just to do an octave, but with a kind of a very specific octave. And then you come down here and we'll just do one copy, and then you have your custom worksheet. It's still called trumpet test apparently, in bass clef, but then you have your custom worksheet within that specific range. And so that works, of course, with any of the clefs, and then you can do any of the ranges that those traditionally would fall under. So anyway, that's a little bit of an introduction to the basic note naming tab. Hope you find some value in that. And again, feel free to reach out to me over at Beyer Music Resources and the Music Educator's Worksheet Generator if you have any questions. Thanks.